أرسمك أرسم أمل بسام ونرسم حضارة ومدن وبرك حمام وأمان.
Welcome to your weekly program, BelAhdan, the show that brings the other side of Arab American to your living room. You know, we're about to launch the biggest project here in the United States, which is the 2010 census, and a lot of issues is facing the census this year. And you know, every 10 years we come and count people, and that's how we decide how much fund they receive and how they vote and everything else. With the increase of minorities and all the things, we have plenty of issues to talk about, and we have here Hanna Garcia. She is the director of Minneapolis Census Project, and she works at the U of M. Also next to her we have Fartune Ahmed, and she was youth director in the Dar al-Hijra Islamic Center. They talk about the new census and the issue might face minority this time. Welcome to BelAhdan, Hanna.
Thank you for having me.
Very well. I know it is a huge project. And it's every 10 years we sit down and see what's going on, what changes in demographics, how people will move from north, south, east, city, countries, whatever we have it. One of the issues that the minorities are facing when it comes to census, you know, language, they don't know how to fill the form. Arab Americans might not find a box that reflects their ethnicity. There is no such thing as Arab. They look at them as they're whites. They're not whites. Maybe after 9/11, a lot of people claim they are whites now. But tell us a little bit about the new census and what are the things they change and the things they should be paying attention to as minorities.
Sure. Well, the 2010 census, I think, is critical because every decade in the past, in 2000, in 1990, in 1980, every decade before us, our immigrant communities and our communities of color have been really undercounted. So as you were saying, it's connected to our funding, it's connected to our representation. We continue to lose. So we keep losing funding, we keep losing representation. And so 2010 is really critical. I think particularly when we're in a tough economy, we can't afford to let our communities miss out on any more. And one benefit that we have with this census that hasn't existed in past censuses is that this is only 10 questions this time. It's about 10 questions per person, and it's very simple. In 2000, the census asked a lot of personal information, a lot of details about income and things like that. But this census, this is actually what the form looks like.
Page.
Well, this is actually just a sample of the first page, but it's roughly this amount of questions for every person in your home. And it's just about how many people live in the home, what kind of home you live in, your name, your age, your race, and that's pretty much it.
So when they say your race, so what options do people have?
Right, and that is a very difficult topic, I think, for a lot of communities of color because the way that it's structured is only to put people in certain categories and it doesn't fit everybody. And that's actually based on past censuses. So determining on who participates in the Census Bureau thinks these are the people that we need to create boxes for. So if, for example, the Arab community isn't participating in the census, then the Census Bureau doesn't know to put a box for the Arab community. And so we won't ever be recognized.
When you say they don't participate, that means they are underrepresented?
Underrepresented, that is very correct.
So the Arabs ignore the whole thing?
It's not necessarily, I think, a case of ignoring, but I think there's not enough information coming in our languages.
I see.
There isn't enough outreach being done to make sure people know how critical this is. And I think there's a lot of people in the community who feel like they maybe shouldn't participate in the census, or the census isn't for them, or maybe it won't benefit the community. They get a form in the mail like this, it says resident, what's it for? Right? What's it for? And
yeah, and when you talk about race, it's based on ethnicity or descent or what's race?
That's a very interesting question. In a lot of ways, for me, the census form doesn't feel like when the question about race really has anything to do with the color of your skin.
Yeah.
It has to do with where funding goes in our community.
I see.
And so I think when we have a box here, I don't know if we can do a zoom in question number 9, but this is something.
But number 9, it says what?
Number 9 says, what is person 1's race? Now it'll ask that question for everybody, and the options are white, black, African American, American Indian, and then you can write in. Then there's some different boxes for Asian folks, and then there's some other race.
My goodness, that's it?
That's it, and that does not capture who we are.
Well, there was a question, so what language is spoken in the household?
There used to be, on the old census,
But
there
that
used
doesn't
to be.
reflect anything.
It doesn't. And that's why this is a really big challenge. This is why we really need to fill this out, because and what I've been working with communities to do is to make sure to check the some other race box and write in who you are. But recognize too that the some other race box is a difficult piece.
So is there an others where people can define their own race?
That's what it is, yeah. Some
I see,
other
that's
race.
what you
That's
thought,
kind of
I
the
see.
other one. It's the last box as an option on question number 9 to
So you
write that
can
in.
create your own race? You say, I'm an Arab Mexican, or I am
Absolutely. You
an
can write
Arab.
in whatever you want there.
And
Yeah.
they can write whatever they want to.
Yep, absolutely.
But we have Fartune here. I'm sure the Somali community now are taking over the Twin City. I mean, we have a big community, and so how the census resonate there? Are people aware of this? Do they care? Are they ready? What do you guys do to make sure they are represented?
I think the biggest wave of the Somali community came after the 1990s, and so most of them missed the first census, and they were undercounted anyways in the first census in the 1990s. But 2010 is much different because there's so many more Somalis. But the thing is that back in Somalia we didn't have a census, so they're not aware of it, and they don't really understand it, and a lot of them are not really wanting to fill it out or not willing to fill it out because there's not a lot of education out there about it.
What's their biggest fear?
Biggest fear is housing. I think it's because you're counting how many people live in the house that you're residing in, and so a lot of people are scared that if they put that on the form, then the public housing or another certain sector will get this information.
But that's a rational, legitimate fear.
Yeah, but the census is very secure and it's safe.
I see.
So that shouldn't be a fear.
So the census will not share this with any other local?
Not that I know of.
All of the information is protected. No other government agency can see the information that we share.
With the Patriot Acts and all that crap?
Even with and actually I have a really good example of how...
Please, well, I'm dying for a good example for 10 years.
Yes, absolutely. And I think it's very legitimate that there's fear there.
Yeah.
But there was a case some time ago, and I don't know the specific date, but you can look it up, where the CIA wanted information on an individual's name. They had an address, they just wanted the individual's name. But so they went to the Census Bureau and said, here's an address, what's this person's name? And the Census Bureau said, we cannot give you that information. The CIA actually took them to the Supreme Court to fight it, and the Supreme Court ruled, no, this information is absolutely protected. And that's happened on 2 occasions.
Wow.
So information is protected no matter what, not the CIA, not the President of the United
average
States.
Somali community buy this? This census is secure?
No, it's not easy for them to buy it, but it's the truth, and that's what it is.
Yeah, well, truth is truth, but whose truth it is? But what I'm saying, how could an immigrant, that they feel they are under assault from an institution, system, whatever, to ask them to trust that system, the very first system that they don't trust, or they're afraid of, or they are racial profiling them, or people feel they are really unfairly singled out. And then now you say, trust me, give me your information. I find that very hard sell.
I mean, it's very hard, but the Census Bureau has done a very good job in 2010 of hiring a lot of multicultural people, so a lot of people from the Somali community, doing much more awareness. They have business leaders, community leaders, imams, scholars, teachers, all those people involved.
Do they do it in Somali language?
Yeah, there's actually a form. Well, the actual form is not in Somali, but there's places that you can go to get help from Somali people, and they have examples of the form that is in Somali. So.
But that's an extra step that they have to do than the average American. And then you put another step for somebody who's not is fearful or not even interested. Do we have some statistic about the percentage of some minority that they are covered and they actually join in the census? Do we know how? Or if we don't know, what we don't know? But I'm assuming is how much representative the community is. Do we have any?
Sure. I actually know a little bit, and Fartune, you may know this too, but it's estimated that in the Somali community, only 1 in 4 people were counted.
Wow.
Only 25% of people were counted in 2000.
I've heard that too.
And so what do we think that means? That means we're only going to get 25% of the funding that we deserve. That means our schools are only going to get 25% as many teachers as they should.
But the question is, maybe the community is not really benefiting from this funding, and they benefit from whatever program they are already in, which doesn't really necessarily require being counted.
Well, actually, there's a good example. In 1990, there was a smaller Somali community here, not as strong as I think 2000 and now, especially in 2010. But the difference from 1990 to 2000 is that there were no Somali language programs. There were no Somali teachers. There were no Somali social services. But now in 2000, because some folks in the Somali community were counted, you started to see a little bit of funding trickle in. So the people who were counted did make a difference, but it's just not as much as we deserve. And that's why 2010 is important.